Can you hear me?
Hello, Max. I can hear you now. Thanks.
Okay, great. So the plenary session is still going on, but soon then everyone should be joining this session here at 9.
And we are now in the correct room now.
Yeah. This is our breakouts. Maybe you can try to share your presentation already.
No, I haven't. I have sent a presentation to Justus this morning.
Okay, I mean, I can also share it for you, but here in Zoom you could also share it yourself, but how you prefer it.
Yes, I don't care, to be honest. I guess it's easier if you put it online, because I'm sometimes a little bit limited with my internet.
Okay, sure, then I will do it. I will try it right now.
We are really... Good morning.
Hi.
Good morning.
I'm really in the desert on the countryside, and our internet is a shame, to be honest.
Okay, then I will try to see where it's...
Morning, everyone. Did you also not join the general meeting because it was impossible?
Good morning. I was able to join also the panelists.
Okay, I couldn't. I was just in the waiting room and there was no chance to join.
Hello, good morning. Can you hear me?
Good morning, Justus.
Hi, Raphael. Good morning. Inge, Tevesia.
Okay, Raphael, now I'm sharing your presentation.
Yes, fine. That looks very good.
Okay, great. And you just tell me when I should move on to the next slide.
Great, great. So we still have to, we wait for Mats, right? Oops, what is this now? Oh. Is this your screen, Max, or is this the screen of Raphael?
This is my screen.
Okay.
So now I stop. Tevesia, are you gonna share the presentation yourself, or do you want me to share yours?
Yes, I would rather prefer presenting my PowerPoint so I can have some animation. Very few
Sure.
ones, it's better. Should I try now or?
Yeah, maybe that's the best.
Okay, let's try. Here it is. Okay, can you see it?
Yes, you can see it.
Perfect. That's perfect.
Yeah. Full
Max,
screen.
Max, I always see this sign, this meeting is recorded. And I have no idea how to get rid of it. Yeah, they do it, but I always have this big sign in the middle of my screen that it is recorded. So I already know. I would be happy to get rid of it.
Oh, okay. I don't have it. So
okay, I just said continue. So now it's gone. Okay, good.
Right, yeah, there are so many technical challenges with this breakout session. So I really apologize for all the inconveniences as caused. And it's, yeah, it's the way it is. Did Mats Asprem join yesterday?
Yes, yeah, he came in the end.
Okay.
So he
is well informed.
be arriving soon.
Good.
And Inge, do you want to share your presentation yourself? Or what do you prefer?
Yes, yes, I would love to, because I make some changes because I forgot about the challenges, so I would love to add them.
Sure.
Right. I guess we don't have this strict time limitation in our session now, which is also an advantage with this big blue button or whatever the software is called. They had a very strict time limit. So after 1 hour, time was over and everything did shut down. If I fully understood this now, if we go, let's say 2 or 3 more minutes over time, they will not kick us out, if I understood this correctly. So that is also an advantage. Yeah, so let's wait and see if the others will join us. It seems to work so far pretty well in the other session. Raphael, I saw you were there, right? So the
Yes.
and Tivisha was there and Max as well. So at least technically, they more or less had it under control, right? Well, I got a number of emails this morning already that people who did register didn't get their login details. So I have, as I said yesterday, I have a few students invited from my class to join, and I got a few emails this morning that they didn't receive the login details. I'm wondering how many thousands of people did not receive them as well. So that is, yeah, one of the things. Right. So Raphael, how is the situation in Eastern Germany now? How was your harvest?
The harvest was pretty good. Yes, we are doing quite well on the farm, but everything around us, so the legal framework in Germany and Europe is really challenging. And it's causing more and more trouble as we are growing. I guess the branch is growing, the sales are growing all over Europe, and now millions of people are buying this CBD oils. Yes, some trouble is causing about people who don't want to have us on the market with these fine products. And yes, now we are discussing with Berlin and we are discussing with Brussels about novel food and the single convention on narcotic drugs and all that shit from the very beginning. So it's all back to 1995. And I thought we did already all these testimonials and scientific opinions, but now they are asking us, and they are close to shutting us down, to be very honest.
Really?
As they are taking us when they are taking us the flower and the leaves for products, we are more or less done. Yes, because this is really a big part of the turnover which we are creating in agriculture here. And so, yes, it's quite hard times, and we have a tough winter in front of us, negotiating the framework for the next season.
So that is also related then to the CBD concentration, or
Yes, it is. It is just related to the ingredients they are afraid of. And the problem is, it is not a single substance product, but we do have hundreds of substances, and that's our problem, and that's our chance as well. This is why it is working so well in the human body. But people, yes, are afraid it could be dangerous. that's a problem. Yeah.
Right. I share now my screen. Can you see it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. But now I can't see you anymore. That I find inconvenient. But let me see if I can do something here. Ah. Oh no. That is. And show. Okay. So I say stop share. So it's for me, it's nicer if I can see you. Right. And we still have a few more minutes to go. But I see now people start to join us. So it seems that the previous session has finished, and then people are now
Entering the room.
entering the room. Yes, good. But we still have 5 minutes to go, so we will wait. I see Kutai there. Okay, good morning. And welcome also to Mats. Good morning, Mats. We couldn't see, I was not able to meet you yesterday. Sorry for that. Well, he's running away again. Mats, good morning. You are muted. Good to see you.
Here we go. Good morning.
Right. Such a long time we haven't seen each other.
Yeah.
Many years ago.
You are in a better location than me, I can see.
Well, this is my background picture I like to use, right? That is.
Justus is in Ravello, for all who don't know, at the Amalfi Coast.
So this is a place where we have our annual conference of the International Consortium on Applied Bioeconomy Research. So next year we have our 25th anniversary, and you should come.
Oh, fantastic.
It's a very beautiful place.
We planned to go there actually this autumn, but it wasn't so easy. I've been there, but that's 25 years ago probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So where you were at the first ICABR conference,
Yeah.
25 years ago, yeah.
Yeah.
So next year will be quite interesting, and also to see if this will be possible considering the coronavirus issues, etc. But we hope that travel restrictions will be easier during the summer season, and that people will be able to travel. But we will make it as a hybrid conference with also the possibility to join online and in person.
So did you ever do that before?
No, it would be for us the first time to do it in a hybrid way. Yes.
So more people would come and more people would listen because people are keen to come now, probably. Yeah.
Yes. So we had the this year's conference. We moved totally to a virtual conference. It was supposed to be in Argentina, and I was surprised by the success. In a sense that how many people did participate in this online event. It was amazing. Right, Regina? There were so many people who logged in and did participate. It was amazing.
Yeah, it was really amazing, especially that we had so many participants also from Africa, and that was really heartening, all parts of the world. Yeah. So digital tools still bring us together. I think that is the good thing about it.
Yes. Right. So 1 more minute to go before we start. Okay. Just to some rules basically. So when we have the presentation and the discussion, please mute yourself, and then only the speaker is unmuted. And then during the discussion, the same. We will invite the people then one by one. But I will announce this when we start at sharp 9 o'clock. Now it's sharp 9 o'clock. Hello to everyone and welcome to this breakout room of the Global Bioeconomy Summit. And now I like to share my screen. Right. And this breakout session is on how bioeconomy is transforming agriculture. And what we would like to do is to learn in this session from success. And we have 4 prominent speakers here in our session that will share some of the success stories of the bioeconomy. But at the same time, not only looking at the success, we also would like to discuss what have been the challenges that they were facing while entering the success road. Now, how the session is organized is we will have first a presentation by Tivesia Ronson from the Joint Research Center of the European Commission, giving us an overview about the development of the bioeconomy in Europe. And then we move into case studies. One is from Germany on the use of hemp, one on extracting cyanophysin from transgenic tobacco, and the third one is from sustainable forest management in Africa for generating biomass for the bioeconomy. This session will be recorded, and we also have a rapporteur, that is Max Kadung. He is researcher at the Agricultural Economics and Rural Policy Group at Wageningen University. And I, myself, I'm the professor of Agricultural Economics and Rural Policy also at Wageningen University, and I will be the moderator of this session. So now some housekeeping rules. Only the speaker should unmute himself, and the rest of the participants I would like to be muted. We will have, after the presentations, questions and answer sessions. Max Kadung will look into the chat room. So there's a button at the there's a chat button at the bottom of your screen. Please use this to raise questions to the different speakers. And then when we have the discussion, we will either call on what has been posted on the chat, or we will also invite directly participants that are viewing this session. So we can do this now and unmute people and then would directly invite them to also raise their question directly to one or many of the speakers. Now, without further ado, I now like to invite Tivesia to start with her, to share her screen and start with her presentation.
Okay, thank you, Justus. Just one thing, the Zoom is telling me I cannot share my screen till you do not unshare yours.
Yeah, I have. No, I am kicked out from the meeting. What is this?
Oops.
That is great. Okay. Sign in. Oh, what is this?
Still can see you.
Sorry, what I will do, I will leave the meeting and then I hope, Tivesia, you can do it. I have here some technical problems. Sorry for that, and I will join later.
Okay, so now I will share my screen with you. Now it's coming. I hope you can see my screen. So as Justus introduced me, I'm Tivesia Ronson from the JRC. JRC stands for Joint Research Center of the European Commission. And this is the part of the European Commission that provides scientific research, impact assessments, and monitoring activities, among them of which the monitoring of the bioeconomy. So my very brief talk today is about the successes of the bioeconomy in Europe, and I will also mention those points that are more a matter of debates. I thought the first big success of the bioeconomy in Europe is political recognition. In fact, you can see on the map on the left-hand side, all those countries that are colored in dark green are countries that have developed their own national bioeconomy strategies. The one in light green are developing their own one, and in gray are those countries that do not have a national bioeconomy strategy, but they are involved in macro-regional initiatives like the Bio-East Interministerial Initiative for the Eastern countries and the Nordic Bioeconomy Program for Northern countries plus the Baltics. Well, almost all EU member states have put the bioeconomy on their policy agenda, and also at the more territorial level, regional strategies or initiatives are developing. This is, in my view, already quite a big success, and it has been accompanied by significant funding for the bioeconomy at the national, regional, and territorial level, but also at the European level, which is, I will limit my description to those ones. Well, first, in Europe, we have this Horizon 2020 research and innovation program that have dedicated 3.7 billion euros to projects related with the bioeconomy, plus €500 million to biotechnologies. This has been complemented by other funds for infrastructure, developing regional bioeconomy strategies, funding agriculture, etc. The European Structural Investment Funds, and also this European Fund for Strategic Investments. And very recently, last month, a new fund has been created, the European Circular Bioeconomy Fund, with more than 500 million euros dedicated for bioeconomy project. Plus, since 2014, we had this public-private partnership to which the European Commission contributed to almost 1 billion euros, and the private bio-based industries across Europe contributed 2.7 billion euros. So you will see that all in all, it's already quite a significant amount of money. And we have good reason to think that more bioeconomy projects will be financed in the context of the post-recovery crisis with the Recovery and Resilience Facility funds. And finally, third indicator of success, which is also more concrete, let's say it's the concrete face of the bioeconomy in Europe, is the presence of more than 2,300 bio-based plants all over Europe that have been mapped here by the JRC. They have also been classified according to the products they produce and the feedstock they use, but it's not shown here. And among those 2,300 biorefineries, more than 700 could be classified, well, sorry, among those 2,300 bio-based plants, more than 700 could be classified biorefineries in the sense that they produce several products or even several categories of products. So it's also showing that biorefineries are developing across Europe and bioeconomy is taking off. Finally, concerning those areas of debates, all points are more or less related with sustainability aspects of the bioeconomy, with the main area of concerns related with biomass availability. The question is there enough biomass to source those new bio-based value chains that will develop with the bioeconomy? And if not, is there a risk that the development of the bioeconomy in Europe will create new dependencies towards third countries? Also, if we consider that the biomass is a limiting factor, then how and who will arbitrate across the competing uses of biomass? After the food crisis in 2007-2008, we had this food versus fuel debates. And now with the development of the bioeconomy, the question is extended to food versus fuel versus bio-based materials. Second area of concern is how to ensure that possible intensification of biomass production to source the bioeconomy and the biomass conversion processes that will develop are not harmful for the environment within Europe and also extra Europe. And finally, because I'm reaching my time, the last point of concerns is more from the social perspective. Also, how to ensure that the future benefits of the bioeconomy will be fairly distributed across actors of the same value chain and also across territories. I tried to keep within the 5 minutes and I will stop here. Thank you for your attention and back to Justus.
Yes, thank you, Tevesia, for setting the stage about the situation in the European Union. Now we move into the details of this. And the next speaker will be Raphael Doulon from Hemp Farm, Germany, and he will share with us some of the experiences making the bioeconomy work and what kind of successes he has achieved, but also what are the challenges ahead. Raphael, the floor is yours. I think Max, you will share the screen.
Yes, can you see the screen now?
Yes.
Make it full screen.
Thank you.
Okay, Raphael, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Max, and thank you, Justus. Good morning to everybody. I am the founder of a company back in 1995, and we are talking about hemp. We are talking about the oldest plant on Earth, which was and still is used for agricultural purposes. And I'm starting with that sentence that is so famous now. Hemp, the only plant that can feed you, house you, clothe you, heal you. And since a few years, roughly 10 years now, we are very much talking about the support of sustainability and the promotion of well-being for the human bodies. And we are indeed talking about the queen of botany. And I'm going to the next slide, please, showing you, if you have not seen, that plant, which is possible to use in any single part of the plant. So the full plant can be used for the production of very good products. And the latest number is now 50,000 uses and benefits out of this plant. And in addition to that, we have very good advantages for the agriculture. This is where I am based. My company is running all these activities around the cultivations here in the northern part of Germany. And we are doing it organic. So that plant is really good, suitable for organic agriculture. And what we are seeing, not only with my company, with all my partners and other companies here in that area, it has really a benefit for the regional economics. At least we have these very big arguments on our side now, which is supporting biodiversity. And the next big point is that we are talking about meeting the demands of the United Nations Sustainability Demand Goals. I'm coming back later to this. And since a year, the European Union is now talking about the Green Deal, and hemp has really got a lot to do with it, as you can see later. The next slide, please. This is just the farm where we are running our businesses. We are fully integrated from seed to shelf. So we are doing seed multiplication for sowing seed. And then we have a partner in the area around 50 kilometers. And I'm showing this picture because it's quite important that we must learn hemp is not a commodity which you can transport too much. So you need to have a centrum where you can work and process these products. It should not be too far away. So we do need a lot of these kind of hemp factories all over the area. My area has around, the cultivation area is around 1,000 hectares. And the production facilities you can see on the picture. We have learned a lot within the last 25 years that we need to meet a lot of very high standards, not only from organic agriculture system, but HACCP and ISO and all this stuff is pretty much needed to be able to sell these products. Next slide, please. Within all these years, there was a need of some innovations and inventions. So we have built that harvester, which you can see there. And you should be aware that area, that level where this machine is cutting is around 2.50 meters height. So that plant is really tough, and this is really a huge plant. And with that machine, we are able to harvest the flower and the leaves. Very special for all these products, which you might know around all the cannabinoids inside of this plant. And within these years, we found out we must go into research as well. So we founded an institute in Slovenia, which is called International Institute of Cannabinoids. Next slide, please. Here you have now a kind of an overview about the product. So my company more or less is concentrated on raw materials. So we have three big areas of our raw materials. First is straw-based, second is seed-based, and the third is flower and leaf-based products. And but in addition, we are having an end consumer product range as well, which is carrying our company logo as well. And you see on the bottom, we are selling kind of food stuff like the vegetable oils and protein powders and tea products, plus many others like chocolate or other sweets as well. Next, please. So I'm coming to my end, but I must ask you to take care of these three books, which from my point of view is a kind of a must read. It is a lot from our European Industrial Hemp Association. So we have done a manifesto where you can find our position and our demands to the politics in terms of the legal frameworks. In the middle, you have the latest paper, Hemp, a Real Green Deal. And I would be very happy if you have a look and have a read of this very good paper, about 25 pages. You find a lot of answers what hemp can do for sustainability and our nature. And the third one on the right is a paper from a very good friend of us who is, which is now since 1.5 or 2 years. They did a paper where you can see a lot of answers to the sustainability demand goals. So that book is telling the answers to 14 of these 17 questions with the SDGs. I thank you a lot for your attention. I'm very open for any questions you have. I wish you a very nice conference. Thank you.
Raphael, thanks a lot sharing your story about hemp production in Eastern Germany. We now move to the next presenter, that is Inge Bruhr from the University of Rostock, and she will share us our story about the extraction of cyanophysin from tobacco. Inge, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Justus. I hope you can see my screen.
Yes.
Yes, great. So, actually, I would like to talk about something very different and very similar to what we heard before. We talk about the sustainable production of a biopolymer in plants. And this is sustainable because it uses the capacity of a plant that is already grown in the field for material and adds another capacity to that. This is a project we share with Justus, for instance, is an ERACO-Biotech project starting in 2018. So we nearly finished, hoping to be prolonged, and this is the funding. And our main aim was to use tobacco as a sustainable platform to produce the biopolymer cyanophysin. So we do plant biotechnology by introducing the production of cyanophysin into the plant, and industrial biotechnology to identify methods to isolate the peptide out of the plant. So we have plenty of people involved in this. Bioceres is the coordinator in Argentina. They do the field trials. We have Justus for economics. We have Wageningen also for the development of new products from cyanophysin. We as University of Rostock, we introduced the production of cyanophysin into tobacco and to several other varieties. And we also work on the isolation protocol. Sanchem is a company that developed a high oil nicotine-free tobacco that we are using. This tobacco is already used for oil production in the field. And we have Leuphana University in Lüneburg, Germany, that do consumer choice analysis and public acceptance. So what is cyanophysin, CGP? Cyanophysin is a biopeptide, a biopolymer that's made by cyanobacteria. You see here these granules that contain a cyanophysin, and this is just a storage substance for the cyanobacteria for nitrogen and other materials. So we could see that this cyanophysin is produced by non-ribosomal protein synthesis by an enzyme. That's the cyanophysin synthase. And that's nice for people working with plants because we only have to take one gene to introduce this one gene into the plant, and then the cyanophysin is produced by the plant. Cyanophysin is a polyaspartate backbone with arginine residues. And so its length just depends on the time it has to synthesize. It is very stable, it's stable in the plant, and so it enriches in the plant during the lifetime. What is already been done with cyanophysin produced by bacteria, is to use either the arginine after hydrolysis, for instance, to produce nylon, urea, fumaric acids, a lot of other things, but it's also a feed supplement.
Inge,
also yeah?
Kannst du in den Präsentationsmodus gehen?
Ich habe das gemacht, aber jetzt ist er besser. Ja.
Danke.
So, jetzt muss ich zurück. So it's also a functional food. You can use it actually to increase the amount of arginine in feed and in food. And the polyaspartate backbone can be used to produce bioplastics, to subsidize polyacrylamide and other things, polyacrylates. It's used in textile industry as detergent in washing powders, or to substitute phosphate. There are quite a lot of different things it's used for, and we are now looking for many other different usages, even of the whole peptide. Why tobacco? From all the plants we tested, it has the highest production and the lowest yield penalty, so the plants look nearly completely normal. Tobacco can be used for silage, and CGP is stable in silage, so that's a nice way to store it. due to the decrease in cigarette demand, tobacco breeders and tobacco growers need new fields, new applications. So that's a nice thing to support them. The seeds, as I already said, are already used for fuel production. And so we can increase the market value of these tobacco plants with the production of CGP or Cyanophysin in these plants. So what are the highlights of our project in the moment? We were able to produce up to 11% of the dry weight of CGP in plants. So this is immense. 11% of the dry weight of the whole plant is CGP. But this is the maximum that has only been reached in the greenhouse up to now. And these are commercial tobacco varieties. We developed a nice protocol for large-scale isolation. We did the first field trial in Argentina. It was successful in the case that the plants produced cyanophysin, and we could see that the plants grow fine. We see differences between the different events. But the time was too short due to a lot of regulations, so the plants were quite small. And we still don't know what is the maximum amount of cyanophysin we can get from a plant in the field. And we have a positive consumer response. I will talk about that shortly later. But first of all, I would like to concentrate on the challenges. One point in plant production of materials is that their secondary metabolites are always produced depending on the environment. So we never know how much they will really produce in the field. We don't know up to now which of the events is really the best one for the field. So we need a lot of field experience to identify the elite event. We still don't have completely pure CGP with the large-scale isolation. We are not able to do any field trials in Europe due to the acceptance to GMOs in Europe, what's really bad. We have problems with the legal framework to send seeds to Argentina and to receive leaves from Argentina. So it took us nearly 2 years to get the permission to send the seeds, not depending on GMO, just because it was tobacco. Then we have a delay due to COVID, mainly in Argentina, so we couldn't do the real sampling. We didn't get enough samples. And also quite a lot of the other things couldn't be done. And then one of the main points is that companies in Germany did not realize up to now that non-food feed products from GMO plants are not as much regulated as food and feed. So that's much easier to sell products because they don't have to be labeled. So they have to learn that these non-food feed products are actually easy to market in Europe. And this is what we see with this consumer choice experiment that was done by Lüneburg and also Justus. So they tried to ask consumers in Finland, Italy, Germany, whether they want to buy products from different sources, 2 applications, skin cream and a food wrapping. And what you can see in these preliminary results is that for food wrapping, GM is actually the first choice. And for the skin cream is the second choice after organic materials. So that's really a nice thing to see, that people are really focusing more on the substitution of fossil fuels than on this GM story. So the GM story seems to really go down in public attention. Yes, actually, that's what I wanted to tell you shortly. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm open for any question.
Yes, thank you, Inge, for your interesting and excellent presentation about those challenges that we are facing if you wanted to develop new products for the bioeconomy, if you use biological innovations. Now we move to our fourth presenter, and that is Mats Asprem. And Mats has a lot of knowledge and experiences in supporting the bioeconomy of Africa, and mainly in the field of forestry. Max will give a short presentation on what he has done in the past, what are the challenges he's facing, and where the future may head to. So Mats, the floor is yours. Oops. Can you unmute yourself?
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me. I think the future is very green and very positive for reforestation. Reforestation in this context, basically in Africa, means landscape restoration. It's impossible to, and it doesn't make sense to establish large new plantations or forest if it doesn't happen in a landscape where you also restore other key parts of the landscape. In 1995, I established Green Resources. We ended up planting 40,000 hectares of commercial plantations, but that was within a landscape of more than 100,000 hectares. And the natural forest regrew in the valley bottoms, and the biodiversity increased tremendously. We ended up being the largest of the commercial replanters in Africa since 2000, but there were a few more of us starting out at about the same time. So the bioeconomy from the point of view of forests and reforestation basically means replacing natural wood use. There are now a number of plywood plants coming up based on plantation forestry, which replaces plywood made from natural wood, which is then a main driver of deforestation. There is wood is of course a building material, but it's very real in Africa because you use timber frames for roofing and stuff like that instead of steel frames. In transmission poles, you see that these dozen new forestry companies that popped up over the last 20 years are producing wood poles for electrification instead of steel and cement poles. And then we have the really big one, which has not been a success, unfortunately, so far, but which has to become a success to save the planet, and that is forests from the point of view of carbon sequestration. Reforestation is undoubtedly the most effective way of mitigating climate change. Unfortunately, very little has happened, and the African Development Bank published a report a year and a half ago, which I helped put together, giving I think, very good overview over the forestry and reforestation activities in Africa over the last 20 years, and there's about 300,000 hectares of new plantations established. It's not very much, and among those, half is commercial, larger scale or medium scale enterprises. Then there are smallholders, and then you have the state sector. Traditionally, the state forest dominated African forestry. Over the last 20 years, they have shrunk. So there's less state forest now. The private sector has increased. It's important to note that the private sector was privately financed, and it wasn't even a development bank finance, which now has become more important. But originally it was financed, more than $500 million went into the sector from private investors and institutional money. The development banks have come in later, and it's interesting to note that when they came in, the new planting slowed down. The smallholder expansions, which also have been important, there has been a very successful program in Uganda, funded originally by the EU, SPGS. But then it looks like the most efficient way of getting smallholder to plant is demand-driven or planting activities adjacent to commercial operations. And in that respect, Tanzania has been very successful, where there's been tens of thousands of smallholders, supposedly, and for sure thousands and thousands, because at Green Resources, the company I formerly helped and worked with a couple of thousand at least. They made forestry a very important part of their farms and grew that. I have a few time is short. I have a few things I would like to say more, just in bullet point format. It's, I think, interesting to observe that it is the private companies that really introduced FSC certification to African forestry. In South Africa, you had that for quite a while. But if you look at plantations, it's a handful of private companies. FSC is the best way of ensuring that you manage the forest in a sustainable way. It's the most widely accepted, as I'm sure you know, international standard for sustainable forest management. It's interesting to notice that the hundreds of millions of public money going into forestry in Africa, into the state sector, into smallholder sector for that matter, has not supported any standard requirements with regards to sustainable forest management. There's a lot of talk about it, but there's no proof that that is not happening. It's happening, and for sure it isn't happening. It's the private companies that have been leading the way here. Then a few words about carbon. At Green Resources, back in 2000, we became the first company in Den Haag at a COP, actually, being awarded a voluntary carbon certificate by SGS, and we went on more than 10 years later to get the first AR voluntary carbon project validated according to VCS, which is a leading private offset standard. This has been a disappointment, though, and the prices of carbon offsets have been low. There were only two companies really focusing on this. One was a German company called Global Woods in Uganda, and ourselves. But the positive news here is that I would say after the market for almost a decade having been polluted by cheap and possibly less valuable, possibly even useless REDD+ credits, the buyers realize now, and the users of carbon credits realize that there's a big difference between the source of carbon credits, and many buyers are now focusing on sequestration as opposed to avoided deforestation, and which may or may not have been avoided anyway without those programs. So the pricing, now there's a very nice difference in pricing that has opened up over the last half year or a year, and may that continue. I think this is an important part of the bioeconomy. Unfortunately, the big forest companies have not realized that yet. This could be a huge added business, I think, and I hope for the traditional forest owners and who can go around the world and practice what they successfully have done. Most importantly, I guess, in Latin America, they could take that to Africa and other places. We have a lot of lessons. Just as you asked me about lessons, I don't know how much time I have, but starting with new species in new locations is not simple. There's enormous amounts of operational problems. It's very difficult to forestry in Africa is more than a crop than a northern European forest. So you need to have people with that type of attitude. I would say it's very helpful finding people out of Latin America, which is the cutting edge of plantation forestry. That's very useful. It's extensive stakeholder relations required, but at the same time, it's not really a problem because the impacts of reforestation on the local communities are enormous. So you don't really have significant issues with the local stakeholders. They really appreciate what you're doing. become the largest employers. At Green Resources, we employed up to 5,000 people. So you really transformed local societies. But there are people other places in the world that have opinions about plantation forestry. So it's very important to put that message across in the right way. Yeah, the list of problems is very long, but it's there to be conquered.
Yeah, Mats, thanks a lot. There was a little bit of provocation in your talk where you could read and listen in between the lines. So I think we have to come back to that during our discussions. So now let me open the discussion by asking the presenters the following question. Now, we have seen from Raphael and Mats that the private sector can achieve a lot and might be even able to do it better than the public sector. Now, the question we have is, first of all, and that would be towards Tevesia, how strong is the private sector when you look at your bioeconomy data? So what do your data say about private sector activities? And then to Inge, when you look into the future of the cyanophysin, can this be done by the public sector, or to what extent do we need the private sector, and what basically, based on your experience, I know you are a biologist, not an economist, would be needed to get this head started also for the private sector? And then to Raphael and Mats, you say you are doing better than the public sector. What are the reasons that you are doing better? So what is the public sector maybe not doing as good as you are able to do? So maybe Tevesia, you start first.
Okay. Well, first of all, I have to say it's not easy to quantify what's the private sector invests in the bioeconomy, because most of the time it's confidential. Nevertheless, there are some data in the literature, and my colleagues in the GRC have also run surveys. And what we see is that the involvement of private sectors is really dependent of several factors. One, for example, are the regulation. This was the case in the lubricant sector, for example. In Germany, there is a regulation saying that bio-based lubricants have their preference in order to avoid losses of normal lubricants or fossil-based lubricants in the environment, and that boosted the sector. We can also say that we have been able to retrieve some growth rate for the different sectors in the biochemistry, and also it's very uneven. In some biochemistry sectors, it's less than 1%, and in others we can reach like 5% annual growth expected by 2030. This is more or less the order of the numbers we have.
Okay, thank you. Now I continue to Inge. Okay, what is needed for the private sector to get it head started with the cyanophysin? Also considering what you have nicely pointed out, the policy environment that we are facing. Your project had to go to Argentina. You couldn't do it in Europe.
Yes, that's true. I mean, there has to be more acceptance for sure in Europe, and more insight in the differences between food and feed and non-food and feed. Actually, I think the public sector did already quite a lot. So we did all the risk assessments on these plants. So we know a lot. We are really now looking for lead events that can directly be commercialized. And there are 2 companies involved in our project, so who want to commercialize all these things. So actually what I think is that we need a little bit more support on the financial side to start the whole thing, because it's not, you know better actually than me whether this is already good enough to earn money with it, or whether we still need to invest quite a lot. I mean, for the isolation procedure, there have to be big investments and things like that. So there has to be a little bit of support for that. And there has to be a better discussion in the public better acceptance in the public in Europe, I think, because Europe will be the main market. But I think we're quite close to companies doing that, and that's what I want. So we don't want to let the public sector be involved all the time.
No, I fully agree on that Europe will be the major market, but there's also where the challenge will be. Will these products be being allowed to enter the European market under what kind of regulatory environments? Do you need special approval for cyanophysin enhanced wrapping material that is derived from a GMO plant? So these are some challenges that have not yet been solved. And I'm absolutely sure, knowing the debate over the past, we will have a debate about this. And we hope that it will be done in a reasonable way. But talking about regulations and how the private sector can still thrive under those regulatory issues, I turn now to Raphael. Right, what is the private sector doing better? You have to unmute yourself.
Good idea, thank you. The private sector is of course working well because we have a very close connection to the market, to the producer and to the customer, which is a very good basement for good businesses. I am seeing the biggest problem in the legal framework, as you just mentioned. I see there are some tools for the politics that might help. Just in terms of taxes could be a very good tool to support sustainable products, but the legal framework for us with our cannabis, which is all about at the end, as this is just the name of the plant and any variety is just cannabis, and so we are in that area where we are seeing lobbyists blocking sustainable development, and because they are petrol-based or farmer-based interests that they are fighting against us. And this is for me the biggest problem, that we could do it on the natural and an organic way, but we do not have enough support from the politics to support the developments. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That was a interesting statement. So on the policy side, the support is missing for achieving the sustainability issues that you have raised. Very good point. I hope some policymakers will listen to this and take this on their plate. Now let's move to Mats. You were saying you, and one of the things you were saying, when the public sector entered, then plantations went down, right? So what does the private sector do better, and what are the some of the big issues you were facing? When we talk about forest plantations in Africa, we always get this debate of expropriation of people who have where the land will be taken away, etc. How did you deal with such kind of challenges to make it a success?
Yes, the data is very clear. When public financing started going into these private companies, the planting went down. Just it's very simple to see. It's more complicated when you look at new establishment of large-scale plantations. And as I said, these things. You go and look at the New Generation Plantation. It's a fantastic organization, and that's the type of concepts of plantations we talk about. These are plantations within a landscape, and the landscape includes natural forest restoration, but it also typically always in Africa at least would include smallholders. At Green Resources, we worked with at least 3,000 directly smallholders, both on the agricultural side and on the forestry side, with various programs. So that's has to be an integrated part of the landscape. large parts of Africa are underpopulated. You know, we think that this this boom is coming over a lot of people and high birth rates, but a large part of Africa is still underpopulated. And a key thing and there's a lot of land available. It's very tempting to go to the best agricultural land. A lot of people have done that when they start establishing forest plantations, and then it's easy to burn yourself, because of course you don't need to have the most fertile land to establish plantations, and that's also when you start competing with food production. And it's very easy for anybody that's been around to see what is happening on the ground if you go to the right type of land. The benefit from a forestry point of view to be on high fertile land is quite modest, and the stakeholder relations issues by doing that are very negative compared to go to areas where there's less or no competing use for the land. And then you have to work, and you have to have local organizations. So Green Resources, we had all black, all local forest operations. We had a number, almost half of the world's largest and most experienced institutional investors in the frontier forestry, so to say, and they studied our organization. They were very happy with it. So there's a gross underestimation of the capacities locally, but you have to have people wanting to do stuff. You can't have people who have been, you know, sitting on the receiving end of various long-term programs because they have never been in the field or planted a tree successfully that has grown up, you know. So you have to. So we always hired people from university, and for their fantastic people graduating from universities throughout the East Africa, and they are very competent and capable of implementing this, and they love what they're doing, and they're able to deal with the stakeholder relations. And there's no, you know, here you're talking about the poorest parts of the poorest countries in many ways, with the desperate need for employment and excess land in reality. And there's no place have we not been welcomed by the local community. Yes, there were problems, but you know, when you have an organization like this, your managers become people of immense power in impoverished regions, black and white, and humans make mistakes, and there's of course plenty of those mistakes, unfortunately. But you have to, but there are good ways of rectifying that, and you are watched, and you have to put in place, you know, quite labor intensive and maybe expensive organizations systems in house, but that's just part of it. You just cannot do it without doing it that way. So in that respect, you know, these are things that in Europe are taken care of by society. In Latin America, it's not really an issue, because often forestry is established on old cattle and sheep farms in extreme rural areas, so you don't really have the stakeholder relations issues. But in Africa, you do, and you need to deal with them. And then the private sector is. So your original question was, you know, what is the private sector? What is the role here compared to the public sector? And I think the key thing is to think of, you know, the private sector being an efficient agent for change. You know, we need change. Something has to happen here. You know, it's we're just sitting here, and you know, there's another COP. Who cares if there's another COP? The only thing we know for sure is that nothing will happen, and we need change. And then I think the private sector is a very efficient agent for change. The private sector is willing to take risk, which was very clearly the case in this forest investments. There were people willing to take risk. You have many people in the private sector who care about impact. They care about creating impact, and it's more important for them than, of course, there's also many people, you know, in the private sector who couldn't care less about that. But that's a potential to tap into. And then you also need to you need to have a commercial mindset. You need to control costs. It's very easy to waste money, and it's very easy to think about planting, you know, millions of trees, and then 3 years later, none of those are growing. It's nice to say, oh, we planted all these trees, but most of those trees that you hear about being planted never add on any cubic meters of biomass, which is what you need at the end of the day.
Yes, thanks a lot, Mats Asprem, for this nice introduction illustration about how forestry is operating in Africa and what are some of the key challenges, like getting the tree to grow, not just to plant the tree. Just as a side remark, we were involved in a project assessing the contributions of green resources in Tanzania and Mozambique, and we have published now 3 papers on the topic. So if someone is interested in this, please Google and look for Mohamed Deknet. He is the key author of these 3 papers to get more insights into the contributions of green resources to local and regional development. Now we are coming close to the end of this session, so I got already a message from the organizers, but we still have 5 minutes left. So I might like turn over to Max Kardung, who is looking at the chat room, and if there is 1 or 2 questions of importance that should be answered. And in this case, I would love to have a short question, a short answer. Max, the floor is yours.
Yes, a lot of questions have already been answered, but I think one interesting one is from Catalina, who is asking to Tevesia, how have you been working on the social aspects of the fair distribution of the bioeconomy effects across the whole value chain?
Brief answer.
Yeah, we've been tackling this question, let's say, briefly. I'm myself quantifying employment, for example, in the bioeconomy. My colleagues are running scenarios for the future of the bioeconomy in which they also look at a certain number of indicators like employment, skilled versus unskilled labor, food security, and this kind of indicators. So those are projections for the future. And there's also the document mentioned by Javier on the chat that concerns more the algae value chain. And finally, what I wanted to mention, yes, this DG Agri work in which they made really a nice work in quantifying the distribution of the value chain, of the value added, throughout the food value chain, from the primary producers, going to processors, distributors, and logistics, if I remember well. And it's really illustrative that we can see that only speaking about Europe, you have very contrasted situation with Luxembourg, in which distribution has the very large part of the value added and primary producers very little, and exactly the contrary in Romania, for example. So this proves that all possible configurations are possible, and now stakeholders have to find the place where to negotiate this distribution and set the fair distribution they imagine.
Thank you, Tevesia. Max, you have 1 more question with a very short answer possibility?
Maybe this one for Raphael. How can we break the paradigm related to hemp on a global scale?
Short answer, Raphael. It will be difficult, I know.
Can you just say that again?
How can we break the paradigm related to hemp on a global scale? So maybe...
No idea. Get up every day and go on into the war. I have that's really too much. It takes a weekend workshop, I guess. I'm very open for that. If we find a forum or a kind of a platform, we can discuss that. I'm very happy to help.
Yes, I think that is one of the big challenges, right? There's some issues related to hemp production from a social perspective, and to break up these kinds of hesitations of allowing hemp production on a larger scale without the potential negative social implications that may arise from CBD levels and TBC levels in the hemp and get this through the regulatory process is definitely still a big challenge. And as Raphael has pointed out, there's also a political economy behind this, right? That others who might be driven out of the market may use such kind of arguments and reasoning to limit or to stop the growth of this important sector. Now we are coming to an end of this session. If you look at my background picture, you will see this is a lovely place of Ravello in Italy. And next year we will have our 25th anniversary conference of the International Consortium on Applied Bioeconomy Research. And I invite everyone to join this conference, and I hope I will be able to see you there again in person. Now I'd like to thank all the presenters for their fantastic contributions. This session will close now. We will meet again this afternoon at 4 o'clock, but Regina will say a few more words about these details in the afternoon. Regina.
Yeah, the idea is you join again through the big blue button, and then immediately we can go to the Zoom rooms. The reason to join first big blue button is that then you can smoothly go back from the Zoom room to the main room, because we will have 1 hour of breakout sessions. ACABR will have a breakout session that will include David Silverman, Ruben Echeverria, and Maha you have already seen, so 3 high-level speakers. And then we will have a discussion in the final hour from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Central European time. We will actually have representatives of all 4 parallel workshops who will be reporting back, and then we will have a joint discussion to come up with messages that will then be reported to the Global Bioeconomy Summit plenary on Friday. So we look forward very much to having you back at 4 p.m. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Regina. So we can stop the recording now. Yes, thanks a lot, Mats and Raphael and Inge and Tevisha. I think it was a very nice session. I really enjoyed it, I must say. And
thank you, Justus.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you, Justus, and thank you for reconnecting. You must send me a copy of those links to this papers.
yes.
Yeah. Thank you also from my side. It was fascinating listening to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
And I hope, Raphael and Mats, that you will come to Ravello.
I'll plan.
Oh, I mean, you have so fantastic success stories. I mean, that is really amazing. It's always difficult to translate this online, right? You have to see to believe. But we cannot all go to Raphael's place. Maybe we should do this one day and visit this and have an excursion there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and Raphael, I think you should apply for an innovation award at the Agritechnica for your harvester. I think that is a very interesting machine you showed to us.
It's a good idea, Regina, but it is now 5 years too late.
5 years too late. Okay.
I've got a patent on the machine, no worries. But I still do not have the funds to build it. But we are discussing with some areas in Brussels for the next GAP reform. Maybe we find some new funds from Brussels for the development of technology for the hemp sector. And maybe that might help. And I have some good discussions with factories who are interested in building these ones on a bigger scale. We just have only one
Okay.
piece of it. And that's all. It's running since 5 years for
Okay.
6 months all over the summer.
Great. Okay, wonderful.
You're very invited to come around. Come to Mecklenburg-Vorpommern, even if it's hard at the moment. We are not so open for visitors from south of Germany, but we can do a business meeting and then you can come in.
Okay, great. Thank you. I will follow up on that.
You should also go to Tanzania and Mozambique to see the forests there. I mean,
Absolutely.
what Mats has done there, I find this extremely impressive. Having done a lot of research on public-private forest sector investments, and I at least more or less by 100% convinced that the private sector, if it's done well, does a very, very good job and is more effective than the public sector. And in one of the papers, we compare the private public sector and show the difficulties. So Mats, really, you did a great job, and you continue to do a great job.
So thank you. I am going to, just as the problem is funding, and actually I'm jumping onto another call here now, where I'm going to try to get some funding for forest landscape restoration projects. So thank you very much, and let's keep in touch.
Let's keep in touch. Okay, it was a pleasure to have you, Mats. Bye-bye. Okay, so then I hope we will see each other. I don't know who will join us at 4 o'clock, but I will go there. But Regina, unfortunately, I will not be able to be in that session from 4 to 5 because I have to be in the session with Stevesia from 4 to 5. So well.
That's fine. You know our speakers very well. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there are so many workshops and many are overlapping. It's a bit complicated to organize.
Complicated, but the good thing, everything will be recorded, so we can watch it afterwards.
That's the good side, yeah.
Yeah.
And Inge, you have to come to Ravello next year. We will do our sustainable co-production meeting. I think we should do this in Ravello again. And I think then we have also more details about the consumer survey, which was it's quite fascinating to see if you, depending on the framing of the question, so that we use different framings to also control for these differences, which could not be shown due to time constraint now. But it's quite interesting to see that this has an effect, and that in general, when we talk about this packaging material, that the GM aspect doesn't matter. It's just about the advantages of having packaging material that is produced in a sustainable way, basically substituting fossil fuel resources. So this across the 4 countries that we have in our survey, it's very homogeneous, the results there, which is encouraging in a sense. Then it doesn't matter whether you're Finnish or Dutch or German in this regard. So
that's a great invitation, Justus. But I would actually love to invite everyone to come to Argentina to see our plants there in the field.
Yeah,
they are starting to grow now.
Skeptical about that.
Yeah, we really have to see how they look. I'm waiting for that 6 months. So
yeah.
Let's hope that COVID allows us to travel and to do these things.
Now I would love to see this, and in particular to see how they do the processing.
Mm-hmm.
So how they squeeze out the cyanophysin out of the tobacco.
They don't squeeze. It's much easier.
Yeah, it's okay. Well, I'm a little bit sloppy in the language that I use. But when you look in Argentina, it's quite interesting because they have this huge tobacco area in the northern part of Argentina, and the farmers are really looking for, what can we do now? They have all this human capital. They know how to grow tobacco. The tobacco market is declining, and there are less opportunities, but they have all these investments. And it would be, for me, just such a waste of human capital and money if we don't provide them with an alternative. Right, for producing that. They know how to do it, right? And yeah, I hope that in one or the other way, it might be possible. We need to get a little more funding for this. I think the Argentinians might not be able to just stem this out on their own.
Yeah, that's true. That's completely true.
Support for this, to getting the investment environment being prepared for this. And then we have how Europe looks at it.
Let's hope Theresia will support us to get the permission to sell cyanophysin in Europe.
No, for me, it's an interesting research thing, right? How do Europeans look at this? Because it shows these discrepancies that we have in our regulations, and that they are not consistent as well. And then this will be then a challenge to the system. And it would be interesting I look at it from a researcher's perspective now, how the responses will be. to this. Right.
Yeah, I think we can expect some changes in the future also with this Green Deal. This is now prominent. I mean, things have to move. So I hope they will move and the Commission will help the change.
Exactly. So that is my great hope for the Green Deal as well, that this changes the debate, right? So that it's breaking up the divides that we have observed during the GMO debate, for example, and that we now observe that the level of the debate will just change. And that will also then great for the hemp thing, right? I mean, they can produce so much biomass there, it's amazing. Raphael, you didn't mention the construction sector, right? That is what Wilhelm Schäkli is one of the main producers of the hemp there in Eastern Germany. And he's an organic farmer, and yeah, he wants to also sell this for construction services. And there was a report, I think it was Nature Biotechnology, about these new housings, constructing the bricks using hemp and then some lime, and then with this making a very sustainable, energy efficient building out of this, and that this has a huge potential. Right, Raphael?
Absolutely. The potential is huge in terms of the benefits for the people who live in these houses or work in these houses. And on the other hand, it is a very good potential for the industry and for agriculture, as this market would be really, really huge. And so scaling up the acreage would make sense. And with this acreage, we have the biomass, and you were talking about it. We are talking about 100 ton per hectare biomass, green power from the nature, and with a lot of photosynthesis working, and a lot of processes in the soil starting. So it would be very, very good to scale it up, but therefore we need to transform all that experiences that we have got in the last years to build in really an industry. And we are close to it, but it is just not done. And so quite very important still is, as you were asking the question earlier, we have the thing, we are talking about myths and facts. Yes, and we are more concentrating on the facts to get rid of the myths, because this is still in our head, as we are all educated under that prohibition, and we are in any of our 23 billion cells is that information. Oh, hemp is dangerous, cannabis is killing you, and all that shit. But it's getting better and better, and I'm absolutely convinced, slowly but safely, we will win that race, and we will succeed.
Maybe I can a little bit encourage you. We have student projects from different universities coming together, interdisciplinary. Yeah. And I had the choice to develop a project for a sustainable transgenic plant. And 2 of the 5 projects were about hemp.
Cool.
Yeah. So one was about colored fibers, naturally colored fibers. And the other I don't remember, but they were really very, very fond of hemp then.
Yes, Inge, I'd like to connect with you, with Rostock as well. Maybe we find some ways to cooperate.
Yeah, we already tried to work with hemp. Actually, it's very difficult. Very difficult. Not accessible for transformation in the moment. And to get all the permissions just to grow 5 or 6 plants in the greenhouse is already a problem.
Excellent. That's it, yeah.
No, this is one of these challenges that the police may come and just destroy your field trial, right? Yeah. So that is what they did for Wageningen University. We had a field trial that was within a maize field, so they had to plant maize around it. protection reason. And then the police discovered hemp in a maize field and destroyed it. It was a research trial. So that can happen, right?
It's ridiculous. It is still ridiculous. Yeah.
So these are some of these funny stories, but there's a strong reality behind this that is not so funny anymore. If they confiscate your land and destroy your harvest, that is something. And these issues, well, the colleague there in Eastern Germany who is cultivating the hemp, the police is coming several times to him because some people were just informing the police and, well, there's hemp growing. And the other thing is the testing, right? The CBD, there's still a high variance in the CBD concentration within a field.
Yeah.
And that you normally have the CBD concentration on average, but if you do the testing and find a few that are beyond the limits, then you may have another problem as well.
Yeah. As all these substances are pretty inhomogeneous, and so testing is always a problem. So you need a lot of tests and yes, trying to get hold of the real numbers. And if you have bad luck, they confiscate a product on the shelf because of bad testing. And then it takes 1 to 2 years to discuss with authorities and convince them that this shouldn't be a problem because the material is fine. But yes, of course, when the issue pops up and you are on the blacklist in the warning system all over Europe with your product, yeah, that's not very funny.
No, that is really an issue with the hemp flowers, right? That they sell in organic shops and in drugstores, etc. There are different regulations in Austria. It's not a problem. In Germany, you can be put into jail for doing it. Right? And it's it depends on the local politician, on the local government, the state, how seriously they go after these people.
Yeah, don't tell it too loud because you know what I'm having here in my warehouses. We are talking about hundreds of tons.
Yes, so be careful.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks again. Thanks a lot to everyone, and looking forward seeing you again either this afternoon in the sessions, and if not, next year, Ravello, of course.
Sure.
Okay.
We'll be there.
Bye. Bye. Thanks to all of you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks to
I
all.
will be,
Bye-bye.
over Christmas, I will go to Zempo. So then I may pass by at the place.
Maybe, yes. Let's
Good to catch
stay
up.
connected. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.